Hi everyone, this is Jennifer Bird-Polin. I'm your University Senate Council Chair here at the University of Kentucky, and I'm here today with Sheila Brothers, who will join about halfway through this slide presentation, to introduce to you our new Curricular program approval process. This is something we've been working on in the Senate Council office for close to 2 years now, and it's an attempt to improve the program approval process for programs that are coming through the Senate. So just to tell you a little bit about what you're going to learn in this video. So we're going to describe to you the reasons for the change, the analysis that went into producing this change, and then we'll walk through some of the technical aspects of the new approval process, showing you both the Excel spreadsheet that's part of the new approval process. We'll show you the form itself and also a new website we've developed to try to help people going through the approval process. So we've put this together in video to try to make it easy and accessible and a quicker way to digest the material. Obviously, we're happy to get feedback from you at any point since we're still trying to improve this process before it goes live. Okay, so why did we do this? Well, as many of you know already, we've been receiving complaints over the last several years about the approval process for programs, new programs, changes to programs, and our thought was we wanted to try to streamline this. We wanted to try to take advantage of Curricular, which is a service we already have here at UK, and we thought the changes that we could make couldn't make it worse and hopefully would make it better. And just for your information, we've consulted with many people, dozens of people, in producing what we're going to show you here today. For instance, we've included in our conversations the chairs of the Academic Council, the Undergraduate Council, Graduate Council, and the HCCC, along with the coordinators of those councils who do a lot of the technical work associated with operating the councils. We've coordinated with the chair of the Academic Programs Committee and the Senate's Rules and Elections Committee. We've also coordinated with members of the OSPE office out of the Provost's office, and finally we've had conversations with folks associated with UK Online. So many different people, including many of you, have already seen versions of this in earlier stages. So we've tried to incorporate as much input as possible along the way to try to make this as robust a sort of creation process as possible. So what has changed in the process? Well, one thing we didn't change is we didn't change the substance of the review process. So all the requirements through the Senate rules about what has to be included in either new program proposals or program changes or closures, things like that, minors, majors, as you'll see, we have lots of, all the forms really for programs incorporated into this curricular change. The content of those has remained the same. We haven't changed anything associated with the content of any of the forms. What we've changed are the methods for submitting information. So you'll see that things look different than they did before, but all the information that was included in the earlier editions of the forms is still included today. So for instance, things that we've kept the same include the faculty oversight of all the curricular approval process. So all the steps of the approval process remain the same. All of the information that's required by the Senate rules has remained the same. Information that isn't required by the Senate rules, but that has been collected historically in order to answer questions raised by reviewers or Senate members, all remains the same as well. So the approval steps remain the same, the content remains the same, but what has changed is the incorporation into the curricular program in the first place. So why did we make this change? Well, in addition to hearing from senators and reviewers some complaints about the complexity or counterintuition of the forms, we heard from proposers themselves that they found the forms confusing. They found the process confusing. We heard also complaints that it was difficult to find out at what stage a proposal was, to keep track of who was involved and who had control of the proposal at any particular moment, that the information that people were looking for wasn't always clear, wasn't always easy to find. So, and again, as I said, we've heard this from lots of different corners, including members of the Senate Council, members of the Senate, members of the academic councils, and proposers themselves. So our attempts here, the changes that you're going to see now are an attempt to address some of those confusions and complaints and create a process that's more streamlined and clearer and easier to follow. So at this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Sheila Brothers, who's going to walk you through some of the technical elements of the Curricular process and introduce you to some of the new forms and some of the new procedures that you'll see in the new Curricular approval process.
Hi, I'm going to talk to you now about some of the technical aspects of how the process has changed. So one of the first things that we did was we're going to use Curricular in its entirety to move proposals from one place to the other. Previously, proposers filled out a Word document, converted it to a PDF, and then it was emailed from point to point. We had a lot of problems with different versions being sent around that might not have been the most recent version. And one of the other problems with that long PDF was it was hard to find the information that you wanted to see. So if somebody was looking for particular information about a letter for a borrowed course, that was somewhere in a proposal that could have been 215 or 300 pages long. So the hope here is that it'll be easier for reviewers and for proposers to find the information they're looking for. So I'm going to move away from the PowerPoint now and show you how it's going to look in Curricular. So if you've used Curricular before, this should look familiar to you. And this is a form for a new program proposal. There's one form for new program proposals, and the differentiation occurs for the types of proposals in the curriculum workbook, which I'll show you later. So there's a lot of instructions to individuals about the uploads that are required. And then a lot of these pieces of information should look similar to you. We're asking for the home college, the department, the zip code, the degree type, and then things like the rationale, description of the proposal. We've got other questions about could the proposal be replicating or duplicating something else on campus. We asked for descriptions of the tracks. And then we have some questions about distance learning delivery for folks. So, and as I alluded to before, one of the problems was having one long PDF that was submitted. It was hard to find information. So we've broken information out into more logical pieces. One of the new large pieces of this is a curriculum workbook. So instead of having those static rows on the PDF or in the Word document, what we have now is an Excel workbook, in which we're calling it the curriculum workbook. There's one workbook for each type of degree proposal. So there's one for new undergraduate degrees, new master's degrees, new graduate certificates, changes to undergraduate certificates, changes to minors, and so that's where the curriculum is customized. So I'm going to move away again from the PowerPoint to show you what the curriculum workbook looks like. So the curriculum workbook is made up of a series of tabs at the bottom. These are all individual worksheets. And so there's some guidance on the first page to show people how to fill it out. We have some questions about admission, progression, graduation requirements, and we have inserted things in here that are university policy, because one of the other problems was that sometimes people put things on forums or reviewers asked for things that were actually contradictory to university and university senate policy. So for example, here we say UK students are required to maintain a 2.0 GPA to progress, and this has come up a couple times at Senate Council and Senate, so we thought, well, let's just make it clear what the policy is. We've got spots for people to put their college level requirements. Individuals can, when they describe the major core courses, they've got a place in the gray box to describe the core requirements. And then we have a table down below where they can input the information. The nice thing about this particular format is that if users want to add more rows, they simply tab through or hit return, and additional rows are added automatically. There are spots for people to talk about the different tracks if you have, sorry about the zoom. If you have multiple tracks for a degree program, you can describe them here with the name. There's a field that asks you how many total are there, the narrative, and then the description of the courses as well. And then finally, we have a summary page that identifies a place for people to look at the different courses by level. So what's left in Curriculog are the narrative questions. These are the questions that are things like the intended audience and that sort of thing. And as mentioned, the curriculums, specific things for the curriculum are in the workbook now. One of the other major differences is how the faculty of record is going to be described. One of the problems that we had throughout the approval process at many different levels is we asked proposers to describe their faculty of record, and we didn't give them a lot of guidance about this, and so they spent a lot of time trying to put together language which we ultimately often told them was just wrong, and then we had to help them revise it. So I'm going to show you now what the form looks like for faculty of record. So this is one for undergraduate degrees, minors, and undergraduate certificates. Some basic information is at the top to describe things. And then we direct people to the easiest ways to fill this form out. And there's a default, which is the standard default. And then if someone doesn't want the default, then they can describe a different type of faculty of record. And then we give them different questions to answer to help guide them to describing what their faculty of record is going to look like. And we really hope this will help faculty understand the purpose of the faculty of record, give them an idea of how the faculty of record governs all aspects, all educational aspects of the degree program. And we're doing it in such a way that we don't also end up just telling them they did it wrong. One of the other major differences is how assessment and student learning outcomes are going to be described. So in the past, there were questions on the Senate form about student learning outcomes, how often they would be evaluated, when they would be evaluated, how the information would be shared, and it was a lot of questions that had to be answered. And then there were also some CPE-related questions in what we know as the brown half, or the second half of the form, that kind of were similar to the student learning outcome questions in the front or the white half of the form, but a little bit different. And then when it came time for a program review, faculty members would then need to create an assessment plan. So essentially faculty had to do maybe not the same work, but similar work 3 times. So one of the things that we wanted to do is to streamline things for everyone. So now instead of having different pieces of an assessment plan scattered throughout the proposal, what we've changed now is we've said we want an assessment plan with the proposal. We think that this is going to make it easier for faculty members to work on the assessment plan separately because it's a separate attachment. They'll have insight from staff in OSPE, the Office of Strategic Planning and Institutional Effectiveness, to help them create their assessment plan. And the benefit of this is they'll be creating one assessment plan. It should answer all the questions for the Senate and for the CPE. And when it comes time to do a program review, the assessment plan is ready and waiting. So they don't have to keep doing this similar information over and over again. And I'll offer one last description. On our website, we're going to have some additional web pages that are created, but we know that users are going to need a lot of help understanding what they have to submit. So at the top of the Curriculog form, we've got directions on how to fill out the form and what the uploads are, but then we're also starting to create web pages to help people. If they're not ready to be in Curriculog yet, but they want to know what's coming, they can look at the web pages. So for example, we've got a web page here that describes what has to be submitted for new degree programs. And it doesn't matter if it's an undergraduate degree or a master's degree or a doctoral degree, it's the same sort of information that's going to be required. And one of the other benefits about having all this information separated is that previously a faculty member would start on a proposal and perhaps use the form for, I don't know, 7 to 15 months as they moved through the process and they grew the ideas in their head and they worked with other people. We're hoping that having the individual uploads available will make it easier for faculty members to dive into whichever part of the proposal they're wanting to work on now. So if they're looking at the narrative part, they've got some ideas, but they don't have specifics, they can work on the questions in Curriculog. If they're not quite sure about some of those questions, but they've got the curriculum, they've got a really good idea about what they want the curriculum to look like, then they can start working on the curriculum workbook. If at some point, maybe a couple months before it's submitted, they finally want to work on faculty of record, then they can grab that attachment too. And so it gives some flexibility to proposers, but it also makes makes it easier for us to incorporate requests from Senate Council and from others about changes they'd like to see. In the past, it took quite a while for newly revised forms to make it out to proposers to be used, and it delayed the time that Senate Council was able to get the information it wanted. But the way that we have this design now, we think that it's going to be much easier for Senate Council or somebody else to say, you know, this is really important, or this question isn't clear, nobody understands what you're asking, and we can modify one of those separate forms and have it available to folks, and it's not going to be something that's going to be someone will already have had on their desk as a single PDF that they've worked on for quite an extended period of time. So this is a description of our process. We're excited, but we also think there's still improvements to be made. So if you have suggestions, comments, questions, we'd love to hear them, and we're happy to incorporate all kinds of things into this process. We understand that it's a big change, but with big changes, we hope we'll see big improvements and people will be happier with the process throughout the university. And we also understand that as changes come to us, we'll need to make revisions to the process. So we'll expect to be making revisions to this in real time or perhaps on an annual basis.
So thanks for taking the time to watch this video. If you're receiving a copy of it, it means we're very interested in hearing your feedback. We're interested in hearing your feedback on any element of the new proposal approval process that you just heard about. We're also interested in your feedback on this video, since we plan to create a video to describe the approval process once we've finalized the changes. So please, you have on your screen email addresses for both me and for Sheila. Pick up the phone, give us a call, tell us what you think about what you've seen, and thanks again for your time.